Hey everybody! Today we're going to have a look at how Phase Plant might be able to save you literal hours of work when doing video game or movie sound design. It should be obvious by now that I really like this beautiful piece of software, but this video is not sponsored or anything. Phase Plant is an incredibly powerful synthesizer developed by the guys at Kilohearts. It's semi-modular. Instead of having fixed amounts of oscillators and modulators, you can pretty much just pick and insert whatever you need and then route and modulate it however your heart desires. It's an obvious choice for creating complex, organic synth patches, and even synthesizing vehicle engines. But as a sound designer for video games, I quickly realized that it can also be an incredibly powerful workhorse for quote-unquote mundane sample-based audio tasks. It saved me a lot of time and opened up new doors for me, which I'd like to share with you today. Let's first talk about what makes Phase Plant so great for this kind of stuff. Plain and simple, it combines a very robust, quickly to set up granular synthesis engine with the possibility of just as quickly applying effects and complex modulation. For those unaware, on the most basic level, granular synthesis takes an existing audio file and chops it up into tiny audio segments, or grains. In music production, it's oftentimes used to create organic, atmospheric soundscapes. But we have different plans today. We're going to talk about creating randomized chaotic sounds, tweaking the intensity of existing chaotic sounds, creating sustained, loopable sounds from one-shot sources, and building generators for unique sound effects from samples. Let's start with the randomized chaotic sounds. Super simple example. We got a recording of a vehicle engine that cools down after driving around, creating metallic ticks as its temperature lowers. But we'd like to increase the amount or intensity of these clicks. You could now start to manually copy and paste some ticks from the sample, or we just fire up Phase Plant, drag and drop the sample into it to load it into the granular engine, randomize its starting position, and crank up the grain amount. That was easy and only took a few clicks. Okay, now we want to create internal rattling of a fast-moving off-road vehicle. Let's just quickly link our grain density to macro 1 so we can modulate it this way. Then we copy and paste the granular module a few times by holding Ctrl while dragging it. Notice that this also copies the modulation link to the macro knob. Now we just drop in some recordings with rattly content and, well yeah. Why not increase the panning randomization a bit so that the sounds feel a bit more engulfing or spacious? And the pitch and level randomization for more variety. We also link the grain density to the macro knob, which allows us to change the rattling density on the fly. And since the granular engine is key-tracked, why not play some other notes to get a higher density with different pitches? I guess you get the idea. Phase Plant allows it to create these sorts of chaotic soundscapes in absolutely no time. Even better, they are randomized and we can modulate them pretty much at will. Imagine creating this much chaos and variation manually. Next up is tweaking the intensity of existing chaotic sounds, which will be a quickie. Here we have a restaurant recording. These are typically used as background noise. Let's say we like the character of the recording, but it doesn't sound busy enough. So once again, we drop that bad boy into Phase Plant, randomize the position and pitch a bit, and guess what? The grain density now basically is our busyness control. Neat. Now we got one of my favorites, creating sustained, loopable sounds from one-shot sources. Probably the most classic example for this would be vehicle engines. The idea is that you record the full acceleration process of a vehicle from low to high RPM. This is called a ramp. With granular synthesis, you can now get a steady engine RPM out of this recording. Or we got this neat air compressor sound. We'd like to get its character for a sustained amount of time, but the sample is so short and uneven that regular, manual looping won't really do the trick. You guessed it, it's phase planting time. After tweaking the granular settings a bit, we end up with something that works even as a sustained sound and could be rendered and made into a loop. Finally, we're going to combine everything we've talked about before and add the powerful modulation and DSP capabilities of Phase Plant. Story time. I was recently tasked to adapt a fireball sound to the visuals of a fuel explosion, with multiple variations. Designing fire-related stuff has always been tricky for me, especially when it needs to be very dynamic and adapt to movement. So I decided to try building a dynamic fireball generator in Phase Plant, as it allows me to use the modulation capabilities in order to sync the sound to the fireball's movement. The idea was to load one fireball whoosh sample into the granular module, and then move its position via a modulation curve that represents the fireball's movement on screen. The heavy lifting would be done by a ton of additional effects, such as nonlinear filters, distortion units, and EQ sweeps. Some elements are completely randomized on each new take, some are linked to the main modulation curve's movement, some are constantly evolving, and some are a combination of all three. Additionally, there is a slight randomization on the movement speed of the main curve, so that the rhythm is always similar but never really identical. There's some other minor stuff, like another granular module that adds high-frequency sizzling towards the end of the curve, but let's not dig too deep into it. This is what it sounds like. The neat part is that I can now generate unique samples with the push of a button. I could also easily change the rhythm of the movement simply by tweaking the main curve. And replacing the granular module's sample would result in an instant change in character. And here we go. Those are the 4 big ways in which Phase Plant made my life as a sound designer a lot easier and fun. And I hope you can apply some of those concepts as well. And while we're at it, feel free to check out my tutorial on the basics of vehicle engine synthesis within Phase Plant, and/or have a look at my Phase Plant vehicle engine synthesis suite called Revvolution. Links in the description. So, thanks and have a good one.